Furbush. Jamia Furbush is a licensed social worker in the state of Maryland. She earned a Bachelor of Science degree in social work with a focus on child welfare from Morgan State University and a Master of Social Work degree with a concentration in displaced populations from Howard University. For years, Jamia has devoted her life and career to focusing on the economic, social, and emotional safety and well-being of children, families, individuals, and communities. Jamia is passionate about making a positive impact in the lives of others, especially children, through focusing on empowerment and actions to help improve the overall quality of life of those she encounters. Jamia is a proud mother of a 6-year-old daughter, Laila, and a 3-year-old Goldendoodle, Maggie. Jamia believes that each day is a new chapter with a new adventure to be uncovered and that the life of a kid should be full of experiences, fun, and laughter, however you define it. On April 24th, 2024, Jamia released her first children's book, The Adventures of Lailabean, A Journey of Discovery. The book is based on the travels with her daughter as they engaged in experiential learning, observation, curiosity, and adventure. And in her free time, Jamia enjoys travel, international cuisine, outdoor adventures, health and fitness, DIY projects. If you don't know what DIY, that's do-it-yourself projects, and experiential learning opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Reading Circle microphone. Jamia Furbush. Jamia, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me. Good morning, Mark.
Thank you for rising early to join me. I'm glad to have you on it because, like I said, it's rare that I have family members on the show. So I'm just happy to be able to get a family member on the show as well. Why have a platform if you can't use it? So I've had this platform now for the last 23 years, and I've had a couple family members on. Every now and again, I've had some family members on, so I'm glad to have you on here. So, all right, let us go back to the beginning, because this is a question, like I said, I don't work off a question list. However, one of my first questions I do ask in general to kick the interview off is, where did the writing part come from? Is that did you see yourself as a child when you were in school? Did you sit down one day and say, I'm going to be an author one day? Or did you like reading and writing in school? Or kind of where did this come from?
Sure, yes. So I did enjoy reading and writing in school. English was one of my strong subjects as well growing up. But as a child, I did not see myself as an author necessarily. I used to write, things here and there on my own, but nothing where I felt like I would be publishing it. It wasn't until adulthood where I, started documenting my travels and just writing things in my phone. Many of us use our phones now for just about everything. So I would write things in my phone, and I said, I'm going to put this on my bucket list. One day I'm going to write a book. And each year I would make sure I take something off of that bucket list. And it came together that this year was the year that I was able to write, check off the book as far as that being something that I have done. It was a great accomplishment, and it felt even better to have it based on my daughter, who's also my co-author. She's resting, so I'll be representing her today. But she is the reason that I was able to, make that final push to go forward with publishing the book. So I've been documenting things that we've done since she was born, actually, and put it into a book. And here we are with The Adventures of Lailabean, A Journey of Discovery. But yeah, as a child, I didn't see it at that time. But again, I'm always looking at things that I can do to improve. And like I said, the bucket list item was up, and here we are. I was excited about it.
Well, I know what you mean about the bucket list, because the fact that I'm sitting behind this microphone and have been for 23 years came from a bucket list. I actually had on a bucket list I wanted to have a radio show and a TV show, and it came to pass. So I know exactly what you're talking about. I see most of your focus is on children, because I just read in your bio that, you're looking at the economic, social, emotional safety, and well-being of children, families, individuals, and communities. What kind of led you to in that direction? Again, I'm kind of walking us through to get to, because I'm quite sure I know the book is written about your daughter, but I know you've had experiences with other children as well. And I'm sure that kind of fed into your thoughts and your ideas. But so what led you in the direction of social work?
Yes, definitely. So I attended Morgan State University, as you mentioned in my bio. I was able to be a part of a program which is called the Title IV-E Child Welfare Program, and it basically trains up social workers to work in the child welfare field. There are so many ways that you can go with regards to a social work degree. But at Morgan State University, I was a part of that training. It was a 2-year program where I actually had hands-on experience working in social services while I was in college. And during that time, I interacted with, children from different socioeconomic backgrounds, those who had various experiences as well, some positive, some not so. But at that time, I took that opportunity to connect with each child as much as I could and meet them where they were. And oftentimes, a lot of them would get excited about just something as small as going to sit down at a restaurant to eat something. And we take that for granted. We think that everyone is able to do that. And that's not the case. So it may seem small, but just in that moment, something like that could be an adventure for that child. I still remember the face of a child I worked with years ago who was so excited to be sitting down eating her meal at a restaurant. She had never done that before. And this was many years ago. But I just looked at each experience that a person has feeds into who they are. And if I can make those experiences as positive as possible, I think I'm leaving a great impact. So I've always had a heart to help. I think that's in my bloodline. I'm sure you can attest to that, Mark. And I have been able to do that in various ways, even from childhood, being able to, tap into others and just naturally connecting with people of all ages, but specifically children. So that was the start of it for me. In my undergraduate years is where I got that hands-on experience. But I've always wanted to be in some type of field, working with children, whether it's in teaching or the recreation side. That was always an interest for me. Being in that program, being selected for it, just pushed me into a whole other area in career-wise. And I look at that as also the start of my postgraduate career, where I was able to work within the state government, for some years prior to coming to, the federal level, and still working in my field. I do want to add that as well, within the realm of social services and human services. But it started out, like I said, just with that program that I did, at Morgan, and just knowing that I did want to make, some impacts in the lives of others.
So Jamia is correct. In the Medley family, we have a very high percentage of folks who are educators or who are working with children. So she's right. In terms of our family, there's a high number, a high percentage of us who either went into education or went into something working with children that's education related. And the point that you brought up in terms of the child just going out to a restaurant, you're right. For those of us who do that on a regular, we take for granted that everybody does that, when truth of the matter, they don't. Mm-hmm. Especially when you're working with impoverished or either urban kids that may or may not have some of the opportunities or the parents that we've had or whatever, or the blessings that we had. We do take those things for granted. And I know when I was down there in Virginia earlier, prior to me getting to the family reunion, I was in Hampton, and I stayed at the hotel, and when I was downstairs, there was a whole bunch of kids there in a STEAM program, in a one of those college-bound programs, a STEAM program, and there was a bunch of them there. And I shared with my friend that I said, wow, this is a wonderful opportunity, because you have kids who are in a hotel setting. It was a nice, very nice hotel setting, and they weren't running around, they weren't acting crazy anymore, but they were being exposed to being in that environment. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how many of them had ever been to a hotel now, because there's a lot of kids that don't even know what a hotel is. They don't even know. They have no idea. Because my friend was saying, you know what? Because we were talking about standardized testing. We were talking about how there can be biases in standardized test questions, because exactly what you're talking about really is about exposure. So what came up in the conversation was, if the test question said, what is the standard time for check-in or the standard time for checkout at a hotel, and they gave choices, if it was like 8 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whatever, said the average child would probably say 8 o'clock that's never been to a hotel, thinking the same thing as school hours. So, and again, I was saying it's about exposure. I took my boys down to the capital of New Jersey, down to Trenton, and they had a chance to go to the State House and sit in the assembly and this, that, and that. So I'm saying all that to say your point about taking for granted that everybody knows the restaurant experience is not true. And the fact that you're doing that and working with kids and exposing them to things and giving them experiences, that is where we get a chance to leave our legacy, because they will never forget you.
Yes. Yes, and it's interesting. I've actually seen a client. She noticed me, and this is since her being an adult. So it was interesting. It was very full circle. She's doing well, and this was back in between 2006 and 2008 that I was working with that particular client out in Baltimore City, Maryland. It's amazing the impact that you make. And something I will add too, often people hear the word, adventure and, like you mentioned, exposure, and they think something extravagant. So back to what we were saying, even with the restaurant or even the hotel experience. But I recently spoke at my daughter's school, which is a, independent school. The children there were very eager, to hear about the book and the fact that, Laila was part of it. And when I spoke with them, I didn't even take it from the approach of, all of the different places we've been necessarily that are far away. I made it very relatable. I just asked them, how many of you have tried ice cream before? And most of them, just about all of them, raised their hand, of course. But just the joy that they had in raising their hand, I was able to connect with them right away by asking about that ice cream. And then from there, I started asking them if they've been to a new museum, if they've ever done anything that, may have made them feel a little scared, and what they may have received to get through that. And the theme at that time was encouragement. And oftentimes when we are in that place to provide some type of encouragement to a child, and even an adult, it does get them to a place where they're able to step out of their comfort and do things that they probably wouldn't do if they didn't have someone there, encouraging and pushing them, to move forward. So I just wanted to put that in there. I think it's, really nice when you are in a place to be able to, broaden someone's scope of what they can do, and putting them in a place of being able to do it is amazing as well. Excuse me. I know that, oftentimes we don't really connect with that when we, grow up with that as a norm. And I say that because with my upbringing, my mother, who is your first cousin, she raised me in an environment where I was able to participate in many activities and able to, enjoy things and not really wonder, well, how are we doing this? Or am I able to do this? It was just done. And so I always grew up with that, encouragement, and also being able to tap into my adventurous side when I wanted to. So that was awesome to have, growing up. And just being able to explore and be curious as well, about the world around me. We, each year we do a trip, somewhere, which, looking back now, like, wow, that was amazing. Some kids didn't get that, and so it wasn't until adulthood really where I started to really understand my normal isn't everyone's normal. But that's a separate conversation, of course. But I grew up with that as my motivation, to make sure that I was sewing into my daughter, which again encouraged this book. Being able to write it was, a great accomplishment. as well. And, my daughter gets excited about it, but, sometimes she's not really wanting all of the attention since it is about her. But it is still something that we are very proud of when I look at all that we have done over the years. I've been documenting since she was an infant. It started out really where I would travel, for work prior to becoming a mother. And once I became a mother, I was determined to continue to do those travels. So my mom would actually come along, and she would be there to, care for my daughter while I worked. And then I also enjoyed it for leisure. So once again, I said, hey, now that I have my daughter, I'm going to incorporate her into my travels. So that's where the documenting, for that really started. And excuse me, I remember, when the pandemic hit, that was a time where most people, just about all of us, were not traveling, especially by plane. But at that time, I said, what can we do still to still have that exposure, to break up this routine? So there are times that we would do road trips, just get in the car and go. We weren't around anybody, during that time, but we were still getting those experiences in. And, being on the East Coast, it made it a little easier to get to certain places that you may read about in the book. But it was also good for me, broke up that routine of just being in the house during, the pandemic. And even when we did go away to stay anywhere, it was, away from others and make it an Airbnb where we weren't, interacting with anyone else and keeping it safe. But even with that was an adventure for me. She and I taking a road trip together. She was, younger then, but she was right there along with me, enjoying the journey. Going to the Blue Ridge Mountains, as I wrote about in the book. We've been to, Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. And, her being 6 now and being able to talk about, these experiences is really nice to hear. And it's not in the sense where she's, boasting about where she's been. She's really talking about it because it's become her norm. She knows about the maple farms in Vermont. She's been whale watching in Massachusetts. Been to the Noah's Ark encounter in Kentucky. And these are some of the places that you can read about in the book as well. And I did not put everything into the book. I know that some people may assume that that's everything, but it's not. And then you have some who ask, has she really been all of those places? And I say, yes, we have.
And, it's interesting as we were talking about, exposure, just the fact that as I was reading in your bio, you've been to 2 HBCUs. And sometimes we even take for granted that when we see HBCU, people know what we're talking about, historically black colleges and universities. You went to Morgan as well as Howard. So even that, in terms of taking for granted when we're talking to kids, and I have this conversation with my teachers all the time that we talk college lingo or language to them, and we just assume that when we're talking degrees and credits and matriculation and we're talking at college, talking dormitories and we're talking credits and all those type of things that they know what we're talking about. When a vast majority of them, they don't know. Because I know on where we grew up, when I was a kid, we had some kids that never left the block, let alone, went anywhere. See, again, I'm big on exposure. And what you're doing with your daughter as well as the kids that you're working with, you're exposing them. And see, it's the exposure that helps with their decision-making in terms of what they want to be when they grow up, what they want to do, who they want to be like, where do they want to be, and just the fact that they've had an opportunity to see something else besides their own area. I did not travel internationally until I was well grown, but I traveled around the country, and I've traveled, as kids, we traveled back and forth to Virginia and North Carolina, this, that, and the other. But even that was more than many. And since that time, like I said, I've gotten a chance to travel all over the world, China, Germany, Switzerland, Italy. It's the list is long in terms of international travel. And you cannot beat travel because this is what happens. For me, like going to the Eiffel Tower or riding on the gondola or going to all these different places that I've either read about or either I've seen on TV, it's a totally different experience when you see it live. And now whenever I'm watching a movie or reading a book, if I see the Eiffel Tower, I say, I've been there. If I'm looking at a video on Italy and I see people riding on that boat called the gondola, I say, I've done that. Whenever I'm in Switzerland or whatever comes up, and I've done that. I've seen that. If I'm in London, I've seen Big Ben. I've seen the Palace. So travel. You can. I mean, it could be costly, but it is worth it, and the exposure level, like I said, is priceless. So the fact that you're exposing your daughter to that, you're exposing other children to that, like you said, something as simple as ice cream.
Yeah.
And so that is wondrous work in terms of now you putting it down on a book because, all right, I heard you say, you had on your bucket list you wanted to write a book. There are a lot of people who say, I want to write a book one day, and they don't get off their duff. That's as far as it go, is saying, I want to write it, and that's as far as it go. Mm-hmm. Kind of like, how did you move from, all right, I wrote this on the bucket list to actually now starting to do it? What was kind of like, or for those that are listening who might want to write a book, what was your process?
Sure. So, like I mentioned, the first part was just documenting the places we've been, over time. And from there, said, okay, I want to put this into, something that can potentially, become a book. So I took the base of, okay, where did we go? What did we do? What did we learn? Or what did she learn, meaning my daughter? So, in the book, you'll see each area, leads into what the area was about, but then also what my daughter learned from that particular area. So that was the base for it there. And once I got that script together, I said, okay, let me look into who I can, get to publish this. So I did, look around at some different publishing companies. And some were, more on the higher end for this being my first book. I didn't want to fully dive in, to one that was a bit higher. But I did some calling around, like anything, you want a job done, you get some quotes, some numbers, and see which one works best for you, as well as what the product will be at the end. And from there, I chose the publisher that I wanted to use and, sent over the manuscript. They did what they had to do in reference to, any editing or reviewing of it. And, from there, we moved to the next step of me providing them because I wanted the pictures to, match the wording as far as the pages in the book. I actually went through all of my pictures that I had to connect them with each page that I sent over. So these pictures in here are based off of actual pictures that I sent to the publishing company. I was assigned, the program manager and the whole team throughout the process. And each picture I had to, look at it, make sure that it fit, what I was expecting it to, with regards to that particular page and what it was referencing. And just went back page by page. It took approximately about 9 months for that process to occur. Overall, it was done within a year. I know some book process can take a lot longer, depending on the length of the book, of course. But it was not easy. I know some people may think it's easy to just, put out a book. Definitely not easy. It is an investment, but it is possible, and it's very rewarding as well to see that finished product. Knowing that you had a hand in it, and that you had something that was a seed, and now it has actually blossomed into, your finished product and can be shared with, with the world forever, essentially, is very nice as well. But I will encourage people to do your research before you just jump in. Make sure that you're connecting with a publishing company that matches what you want. Do your research on them. Make sure that they are going to follow through on what they have put out to. Read some reviews if you need to as well. In transparency, the publishing company that I use for this one, I don't know that I would use them again, despite the illustrations being very well. I'm big on communication, and I don't feel like the communication was as great as it could have been. But I haven't written them off completely, but I will see if I need to pivot to another company. So even for me, it was a first-time experience, so I learned, some things that I can expect or should expect, and what I would want to do for the next book, because I do plan to write another. May not be right away. I know several have asked me, when's the next one coming out? And I said, it takes a little time, and I want to get this one, going further than it already has. So hopefully within the next year, I'll have the next one available. But we will see.
So it's interesting you're talking about in terms of possibly switching publishers, because that happens with a lot of authors. Like you said, especially the first time, because okay, this is my first time. I'm still trying to feel my way through. I settled with them. I worked with them, but and you have that right to change off. I mean, if you want to switch off, you have that right to do just that. But as I say, it is a learning process. I mean, in terms of like I'm in the process now of writing a dissertation, and as a part of that, you have your chair people and all these people that they give you feedback and they do your editing, this, that, and the other. And they tell you right up front, you're going to have a thick skin because we're going to constantly be redlining and giving you this. What was that like for you in terms of like now with the publishing company or the editors constantly, or did they push back on you in terms of how you wrote it or what your thoughts were? Did you have control over that? Or did they kind of did you keep your ideal of what you wanted it to be? Or did they kind of say, no, in order for this to sell, we got to do this?
Well, thankfully, I was able to keep the idea of what I wanted it to be. With the editing, there wasn't too much that had to be changed. A few things here and there. I think because, again, I've enjoyed, English and writing and reading for years. I was able to present it the way that I felt was, appropriate. But, of course, they were doing their job, too. So just minimal things that they had to change. Only thing I had to push back on was some of the illustrations. The illustrator, at times I felt didn't capture what, the words were saying, or at times they didn't necessarily understand what I may have been asking. So that was the lengthiest process, actually. The illustrations, a lot of back and forth with those, reviewing, sometimes early in the morning, sometimes late at night, reviewing the illustrations, and making sure that it really did match and speak to, what the words were saying on particular pages. It's funny, even looking at the book now, there's one page here, it's in reference to Illinois, and it says, standing tall like a giant, Lailabean marveled at the big beans and indulged in the deliciousness of Chicago-style pizza. So for this page, I didn't think anything of it, and it's not an issue, but it doesn't reference what my daughter actually eats. On this page, they put pepperonis on the pizza. My daughter saw this. She said, I don't eat pepperoni pizza. And, just something as small as that. I said, well, okay, some people do, though, so it's okay if Lailabean in the book is eating pepperoni pizza. But, something like that doesn't seem big, but for her, she's like, wait a minute, I don't eat pepperoni. So maybe next time I may look at that, as being something that I'll dig deeper into. But that was minimal, and the illustration looked great, but it was just comical for me that she pointed that out, on the page. But yeah, the lengthiest process was just reviewing those illustrations, making sure that there was consistency there as well. And again, the communication, was somewhat of a challenge, for me with this particular publishing company. But other than that, I didn't have any major challenges with the book. I will say be flexible if someone is looking to do the process. Be flexible. You may be given a deadline or a release date, and that may not happen. And I think that's within the art realm in general. And publishing. Originally I thought the book would be available by Christmas of last year, and I shared it thinking that it would be, and then it wasn't. But, it did become available earlier this year in April, and I'm a firm believer that, all things work together, and I think it was in the time that it was supposed to happen when it did come out. And I received, overwhelming support from family and friends, and I've just been informed recently that, books have been sent to individuals in other countries also, which is, a blessing to hear. And many who have read it have expressed how, even as an adult, it's been something that makes them want to branch out more and really look at things as an adventure, and even bravery. People assume because you're an adult, you're brave.
Correct.
That's not always the case.
That's right.
So, with that, I think it's wonderful, that people are taking it, no matter what age they are, even though it is, a children's book, it's really a book for all ages. Going through that publishing process, though it didn't go the way that I, would have expected necessarily, it still came out to be beautiful in the end. So,
this is why I keep focusing more on here's a learning process. So you learn something from dealing with that particular company. I mean, you may decide to deal with them again, or you may not, but either way, you learn what you want and don't want as you move into the next project. Now, in terms of your title, I know your daughter's name is Laila, but how did you extend that to Lailabean? The Adventures of Lailabean, a Journey of Discovery. So talk to me a little about Lailabean.
Sure. Yeah. So there's some background. During pregnancy, early on, I learned, that I was having a little one, of course, and then from there, I just referred to her as Little Bean. I knew what her name would be, but I did not tell others, specifically my mom. She was very excited. First grand, of course. So very, very excited. So she knew her as Little Bean as well, and then sometimes just Bean. And so once she learned her name was Laila, that's when we all changed it to Lailabean. So that's where it started. And that's her nickname that was amongst family, but now it's amongst the world. So it's pretty funny to hear other people calling her that. And she's looking like, okay, everyone knows this name now. But she embraces it as well. But yes, that's where it started. So she's been our Little Bean, and now she's a full-blown 6-year-old, not a little bean anymore, but Lailabean is here to stay. I don't know how she'll feel about that as she gets into her teen and adult years, but, most families, once you have a nickname, it sticks. So
it does, but I tease the rest of our cousins because they moved away from their nicknames to their original names, to their given names, and they get an attitude if you call them their nickname. I've been calling them nicknames since we were kids, so I'll mess with them intentionally and call them the nickname, and they get an attitude, and I don't care. I'll be like, you know what, I'm doing that. I'm messing with you. But in any event, yes, exactly, you're right. But now, the other thing in terms of when I have my authors, particularly African-American authors, when they do books, because I'm big into covers. I'm big into covers and titles. And I see here, you actually have, of which it makes perfect sense to me, but you have an African-American child or an African-American girl on the cover. How important is that for other African-American kids to see a book with someone on the cover who looks like them?
Yes, very important for me. I, again, having the background that I have, professionally, I have seen, the disparities as well as the, idea that some have with regards to children of certain races not having certain experiences. So it was very important to have that representation, on the cover of this book. To give you some background, I've always been into adventure. I've always done things that were outside of the box in reference to what one would assume an African-American woman would be doing. And I, in turn, have trickled that onto my daughter. I love adventure. I've been whitewater rafting, skydiving. I will hop in a kayak and go fishing with no problem. And it's just natural for me, things that I enjoy doing. So I think that when children see, this cover, one, they see themselves, but then when they read deeper into what was being done, it broadens their scope and opens their mind as well. And I just think that it's important across the board, when you see that representation. Being a product of 2 HBCUs, it was a norm for me, being amongst my peers. But I know that there are some children where that is, or even adults where that isn't the norm. So I've heard, feedback from some parents, just just knowing that they have this book for their child now, is, heartwarming for them, especially from the sense of exploring, bravery and wonder and experiences and possibility and even the culture, encouraging creativity. So I think it's beautiful for me to be able to, present this. And again, it's out there forever. So, the kid may not see it now in 2024, but it could be 2028, and the kid is seeing it, and they're seeing that representation.
Well, this is the thing about books in terms of, and I tell authors this all the time, and you're right in terms of, because I'm picking up on your point about it being forever. Once you've published a book like that, it's out there forever. Now, it might be 50, 60, you might be dead and gone, and that book was in somebody's attic somewhere. It'll get pulled out, and it'll, of course, you got your copyrights in there, 2024, whatever. But the book is not going anywhere, and once they're in print, you're absolutely right. Now, going back to the cultural relevancy, and it is extremely important that you have an African-American child on it. And just because an African-American child is on the cover does not mean white kids can't read it. Because we have been subjected to white kids on covers that black folks had to read about for years, forever, talk about forever. Mm-hmm. So there's no reason why a white child cannot pick up your book and read it. And, because that's the way it ought to be. It ought to be regardless of which one is on the cover, because this is where we run into the issue. We run into the issue with the dominant group trying to pretend they're the only ones that's ever done anything. So when you get now like a book like yours, it does give kids, particularly African-American kids, black people travel too. Black people are adventurous as well. And see, this is where our Caucasian brothers and sisters need to understand that too. They need, yes, they do. Yes, they do. Okay. So that's why it is so important that you're reflective of who you're talking about. And it's really, really good that even though, because some people, believe it or not, would have done this, even though they were writing about their daughter, they would have put a white kid on there, thinking in terms of trying to sell it, this, that, and the other. I'm glad you didn't do that, because it needs to be reflective and be very clear. I keep it real in terms of whenever I'm on the show or whenever I'm addressing groups or when I'm talking to people, I keep it real. It is what it is. So that's why I'm going down this track with you in terms of it is very important that you had an African-American character on the cover, given that it's about an African-American person. And it shows that, yes, we travel, we do things just like anybody else. And the fact that it's going to be in other children's hands, that, in terms of, so how are you promoted in terms of, are you doing book signings? Because like I said, I'm going to the Harlem Book Fair today, where it's going to be tons of authors set up. I mean, it would have been great. And I think they, if I'm not mistaken, they do something like that down in the Maryland, Washington area too.
Yes. They do host a lot of events in the area. I will say at this time it's been a bit challenging to get out to everything. But I have, as I mentioned, I spoke at my daughter's school. I do have cards that I've made. I go around, I provide those to individuals and postings on boards and things like that.
Right.
Even just recently, I self-promote as much as possible. I was on a cruise ship for a family vacation. I'm on the cruise ship passing out cards.
I know, that's right.
Because I see families, with children, and just from that, I've had several who have purchased in that way. So I've been self-promoting a lot. I do have family as well who's been putting it out there, which I appreciate. Then, going back to that publishing company again, in transparency, I did pay for a promotional package.
Right.
But I do not feel that they have been promoting it in the way that they should. So that's, again, a learning experience like we talked about. It's experiential. I'm big on experiential learning, so I have learned from the experience. And I am very vocal as well when I'm not pleased with something.
Correct.
That I have paid for. So I have expressed that to them. And I know that things will improve. May not be right away, but there will be some improvement. But with regards to promotion, that's been my biggest way of just doing things right now, is self-promoting. And even the libraries in the area. I'm in a small town in Maryland, and we have several libraries around. So I have provided my information to those libraries, and even a copy of a book to one of them to have on the shelves there. And later this year, they'll be having a new authors event at the library. So I'm looking forward to doing that. But yes, as far as going to a lot of the events in the area, time hasn't necessarily permitted me to do that right now. Juggling life with a 6-year-old
and a job and everything. That's right. That's because there's a difference between if some of my guests are full-time authors, that's all they do. And so there's a difference between somebody like you just said, I have a small child, I'm younger, and plus I have my work and so forth and so on. So yes, but the fact of the matter is you're still getting it done. There's a big bookstore or shop down there. It's called Busboys and Poets.
Yeah,
that's down in that Washington area. I've been there before. That's enough. If you by chance can get somebody to have you present in there or talk in there for a few minutes, that would be wonderful. But things like that. And I'm going to hook you up. Matter of fact, my guest is coming on in 2 weeks, Dr. Ayo Sakai. She's down in your area, and matter of fact, I'm on her publishing company board. She does academic work, but I'm still going to connect you two together. Her publishing company publishes scholar work, academic work, but I'm going to hook you two up together because you live not far from each other. But in any event, she'll be my guest, and she got her PhD from Howard, so there's another connection you two will make from the Howard University. So I'm definitely going to connect you two. But you're absolutely right. But see, and that's another thing. It's about networking and connections because you never know who knows who. And you never know that one connection that might be the one to take you over the top.
Yeah.
Now, you said the book was released in April. So nowadays, because see, again, when I was a child, there was no such thing as a digital book. Everything was paper. Mm-hmm. But now you have the both. But you have print copy, the soft cover, as well as digital, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And they're both available on Amazon. But yes, we have both of those. Wasn't able to do the hard copy right now due to the number of pages, but that's something that I would like to work up.
But when I say I'm talking about a paper copy, there's a paper book, there's a book, there's an actual physical book.
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
so where I'm going with the question is, they had to send something to your home. They had to send a box of books or either a sample book or something. When you received that, what was that feeling like for you? When you got that box of books or either that final edition or whatever, what was that like for you?
Yes, of course I was smiling to see it. I was happy to see it. Knew what had gone into the creation of it. So to have that final product was very rewarding. I actually have it here in my hands now, and just feeling it is very nice to know that this is something that started out, like I mentioned, that, a seed, so to speak, having those notes in my phone and then actually fleshing it out further to develop a book. It's a blessing, it's something that, if I really sit back and I think about it, I'm like, wow, this is huge, it's very nice. I smile. That's all I can say is I smile when that's.
Well, it's like that is a question I generally will throw in there only because I released a musical CD in 2011 and I now released a second one in 2013. And each time the box of CDs would come and I'd open the box and actually hold it in my hand and I'd see the cover and I see my name on it and all that. I could not put into words what that feeling was like. And I'm sitting here looking at the cover of your book and I see by Jamia Furbush and Laila Smith. And so it's almost like birthing. I never gave birth to a child. I was there when my two daughters were born, but I have not given birth. But it's almost like birthing a child. Like the project is like your baby.
Yes. Yes, it is. It is. And then, the other side of it is making sure that you don't put on that hat where you're critiquing. Because often people get something or they do something and then they see it and then they look at it and they see the things that's like, oh, well, this could have been done better. Or like just the chuckle that I gave you about the pepperonis on the pizza. Sometimes we can also be the critic of our work as well. But it was definitely, a great thing to have it in my hand. And again, the only thing I can say is I smiled, when I initially got it. And then, always looking for ways to improve. So
absolutely
now that I'll do, the next time
Absolutely. It's like, how do you, because there's another part to the critical piece. There's a flip side to that as well, because there are times whenever I'll put my CD on and I'll listen to it and say, oh my God, I can't believe I played that. Like, that was actually me. So, and it was like really kind of like, so where I'm going with this is, have you ever picked up the book and read through it and say, wow, I don't even remember writing that?
The writing portion, I do remember the writing, but it's more so the illustrations, because that was the part where I had to go back and forth so much. And I'm like, did I approve this part? Like just more so that part. But, even, for example, it's something that we laugh about amongst family. Again, I sent pictures to the publishing company to give them some inspiration. So there's a page where it says each day was a new chapter, a new adventure to be uncovered. The life of a kid, her mom believes, should be full of experiences, fun, and laughter, however you define it, which is leading to what I also had in my bio. But on that page, my daughter sees that, and she says, you look like Grandma. Actually, she thought it was my mom on this particular page. And I said, no, that's me. Now, granted, it's loosely me because it's an illustration, but the way that the illustrator drew the picture, it did look as though it was an older, woman.
Right.
But even with that, I changed it in the sense of there will be women of all ages reading this book. So I think that is also something that's reflective of it being something that can connect to people of all ages.
No, you said that earlier, and that's a very good point, that just because it's under the genre children's book, matter of fact, some of your best messaging comes through children's books. Mm-hmm. Even it might be for adults, but sometimes some of your best messages and best stories come through children's books. And so, yes, you're right. The audience from all ages will be reading it or looking it over, or like I said, sharing with their children. So are you looking by chance to get it into like schools or school systems?
Yes, that is something I would like to do, starting out with the libraries, and then I would like to move into doing some school systems. I know a couple of daycares have looked into it as well. So that is a hope, over time to do that. And I did want to go back to something in reference to even the publishing. So with Busboys and Poets, I learned that if you have self-published, because essentially that's what my book was considered, a self-published book, there are some stipulations there and even restrictions, unfortunately, for some of the major, companies or, establishments when it comes to promoting it.
Okay.
So that's something that, again, a learning experience. I know for next time that I would, need to take a different approach if I do want to get into some of the stores, some of the local stores, because everyone is a little different.
Right.
That was something that I learned as well. But I do hope to, connect with some schools to get this out there. Even speaking at more schools, I was grateful again to speak at my daughter's school, but I'm definitely open to speaking at others. It doesn't have to be, children. It can be older, adolescents and teens as well, because, again, it's a book that can relate to many people across the board. I hope that can be something else that I do in time.
So now your next book, your next project, you said you're not sure if that's going to be a children's book or not, or is it going to be another children's book? Or do you have any idea at this point?
It will be still in the category of a children's book, but still taking that same approach as what I have now. For instance, just to give some insight as to what the next one might incorporate, since I finished this book, we've been to, another resort, that's in Pennsylvania. We've been out to Puerto Rico at a national rainforest out there. Actually been, on Broadway shows to see, the Wiz and even the Rockettes, and, been to, areas out in California outside of, the area that was in the book. So I say those to say those are some of the things that I'm looking to put into, even the next one. But again, making it relatable to all ages. Even something like going to St. Martin and jet skiing. I was on the jet ski, but then at the same time, I had, at the time, a 5-year-old sitting in front of me who's on the jet ski as well. So even though she was excited to be on it, and we were out there, in St. Martin having a great time. So it's relatable in the sense of, an adult. I was out there. All of these things that she's done, I've done them. And that's where it's trickled from, because it's just stuff that I naturally enjoy. And she's a part of them, and making those experiences for her. So a child could see, wow, a kid is out here jet ski. But at the same time, that adult can see, wow, she's out there jet ski.
That's right.
I say that to say, the book will still be, a children's book, but it will be a book for all ages, essentially. Yeah.
So I heard you say something about skydiving. Now, that's one thing that's on my bucket list. I haven't done it yet. One of my teachers, we were supposed to do it. She had turned 50, and she came in and said she wanted to go skydiving. Do anybody want to go? So none of the teachers said. I said, I'll go with you. And right before when we were getting ready to do it, pandemic hit. And so we haven't done it yet. I think matter of fact, her birthday is this month. I think she's going to turn 55, because that was 5 years ago. And we've been threatening to do it. We haven't done it yet. But that's one of the things that I want to do is the skydiving. So what was that experience like?
It was amazing. This was, pre my daughter. She wasn't born yet, but it is something that she would like to do as she gets older. They have age restrictions on that, of course, so she's not old enough yet. But it was a great experience, adrenaline rush. But I have a video of it from years ago.
Right.
Once again, my greatest supporter, my mom was at the bottom recording and watching me fall from the sky, essentially, with the parachute. But it was very nice. It was comical as well, because I did tandem. So the person that was on me was actually shorter than I was. So coming down, you see my legs first, and then theirs behind me. So it's kind of funny. But definitely a great experience. Again, I've always been into, the things as far as adventure goes.
Right.
And I would do it again.
Yeah, I would. For me, it would definitely be tandem. And I'm into planes and all that kind of stuff, but I wouldn't jump out by myself yet. It would definitely, the first one would have to be tandem.
Not yet. Definitely need some training before I take that one.
That's exactly right.
But I also know my limits, so I wouldn't do that one yet. But I do have plans, at some point, even, mentioned, the flying and things like that. I would love to get into the space of even, taking some classes there. And it's interesting because things that I have that desire to do myself, as I call her, my little sidekick, is right there saying, I want to do it too. And I have to say, well, wait a minute, you're not old enough yet. So now she's like, when I turn 8, I can do this. When I turn 9, I can do this.
But see, she has the mindset already. That's great. That is great.
That mindset. That mindset. So, and most in our circle are not surprised when she's talking about things, because they already know this is how she's been raised up, and
right.
It's, become a norm for her. And even having fear, it's something that she and I talk about. Fear happens, no matter who you are, but it's how you respond to that.
Correct.
And so, even going back to, again, speaking at her school, the head of the school had asked for both of us to speak. So there was a portion where Laila did speak, and she spoke of the time where we were on a high ropes course. So we were out in New Jersey, actually, at the was it American Dream mall out there.
Oh, you were like 10 minutes from me. I live 10 minutes from there.
So we were at the American Dream Mall, and we did a high ropes course, and we were on the adult course. She was tall enough to go up there with me, so we went very, very high and got all the way down, and, she was up there, and there were points where she's looking kind of like, So, I asked her to stop, take a deep breath. And first we'll say, okay, do you feel that you can do it? And then she kind of, looks at it, thinks about it, and she'll say, yes, I can do it. And from there, that's when I put that encouragement in place. I'm like, let's do it, Laila. You can do it, Laila. Keep going, keep going.
Right.
And so at her school, she actually spoke of this. And so she went very high on the high ropes course. not saying she wasn't afraid, but she conquered that fear. She stepped out of her comfort. And, we got up high, we ended up coming down. But the comical piece of it is we got down, and then that's when we saw the children's course next to it. And she's like, they had a kiddie course the whole time, but she didn't see that kiddie course. She saw the adult one.
See, you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. If she had seen that kiddie one before,
she probably would have went to that one. Exactly.
Yeah. So, it was great to have that experience with her. And she even spoke about that, with her school, how she did that. And she had that encouragement, to do it along the way. And now she knows that she's capable, and she's
there
able
you go.
To do that.
See, I'm going to have to get in touch with the teacher now and see if we can go ahead and get this, because we've been talking about it, like I said, for 5 years. So I'm going to have to now you done encouraged me and inspired me. I'm going to have to catch up with her and say, you want to do it? Let's go do it. But in any event, we are down to the last few minutes. And what I do in these last couple of minutes is I turn the microphone off and give you an opportunity to promote. Now, you can say anything except the price. Anything short of the price, you can shout people out, you can promote the book, you can whatever, or anywhere you're going to be, book signings, how they can get the book, websites, anything you want to say with the exception of a dollar amount. I'm going to shut the mic off for a couple of minutes and you get a chance to self-promote. So that starts right now.
Sure. Thank you. So the book, The Adventures of Lailabean, A Journey of Discovery, is based on many of the travels I've done with my daughter, who was born in 2018. Since she was an infant, she's traveled with me nationally and internationally. And each time we have traveled, I have engaged her in experiential learning and encouraged observation, curiosity, and adventure. The book is meant to be a children's book, but it's a wonderful travelogue for all ages. It encourages exploration, observation, discovery, and most of all, experiences. The character, Lailabean, again, is based on my daughter. She's filled with curiosity. In this book, she explores nature, creativity, culture, and more. And I think it will be a great thing to have, for people of all ages. Experiences are meant to be had, by all. If you're into Montessori, this is great. If you're into adventure, this is great. Discovery, this is great. Educational outlets, this is great. Recreation, self-help. Some people may put it in that category as well. This is a great book to have for years and years to come. And it can be purchased on Amazon. If you look up The Adventures of Lailabean, A Journey of Discovery, it is available in Lailabean is Lailabean. But again, it is available on Amazon. A paperback copy is available, as well as the electronic copy of it. And I am also available via email if anyone needs to reach out to me. It's Jamia, Jamia, .Furbush, Furbush, @gmail.com. I am excited to share it with everyone. And if it's an opportunity that comes up where you think I would be a good fit to be a part of it, feel free to reach out to me with that. And, we do enjoy travel. So if you do meet someone in person, I can see if that is a possibility as well, between, work and school schedule and all the things in between. But either way, thank you all for the support. I think you'll be happy with the product, and hopefully I'll be able to have another one available for everyone within the next year or so. So thank you so much, Mark, for the opportunity.
Thank you, as I said, for rising early. And as I said, I record these. It'll be on my YouTube channel. So for those who did not rise early with us, they can go back and listen in the archives. But I wish you all the best. I will get everything to you, the YouTube link, the MP3 link. And once you get them, you do what you like with them.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Have a wonderful day, and I'll be in touch with you.
Sounds good. You have a wonderful day as well.
All right. Take care.